Formative 3. Use the function f of x equals 2 to the x to answer the following questions. What is the equation for the inverse function, f inverse of x? So like always, we let f of x be y. We switch x and y. And then since that is an exponential equation, we're just going to rewrite it as a logarithmic equation. So we write the word log. The base of 2 becomes the base of the logarithm. And then since x was all by itself, now the y is going to be all by itself. And then just to have the correct function notation, instead of the y, I'm replacing y with f inverse of x. And then the rest will just stay the same. For part B, we want to fill in the table of information below for f of x and f inverse of x. So for the sketch of the graph, for the original one, it would look something like this. And then for the inverse, it would look something like that. So the domain for the original one would be negative infinity to positive infinity. The domain for the inverse, it's only the positive x values, so 0 to positive infinity, because we never cross over into negative x values. The range for the original function, we don't see any negative y values, so 0 to infinity for your range. For the inverse, we cover all of the y values, so negative infinity to positive infinity for the range for the inverse. For the intercepts, on the original function, we have a point at 0, 1, and then on the inverse, we would have a x-intercept at 1, 0. Because remember, a function and its inverse, you can just switch all your x and y values. For the asymptotes, we have a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0 for the original function, and then we have a vertical asymptote at x equals 0 for the inverse function. For end behavior, as x approaches infinity, f of x also approaches infinity. As x approaches negative infinity, f of x approaches 0. So you get closer and closer and closer to the x-axis, but you don't actually touch the x-axis. And then for the inverse, as x approaches infinity, f inverse of x approaches infinity. And then as x approaches 0 from the right side, f inverse of x approaches negative infinity because it keeps going down forever. On number 2, they have 3 to the x already graphed for us. They want us to graph the inverse of that and then describe all those key characteristics that are listed. So like we did on our practice, our lesson 3 practice, we have a point right here at 0, 1. We have a point at 1, 3. And then we have a point at 2, 9. So let's just take those 3 points that are easy to see on the graph and change all the x's and y's, flip all the x's and y's. So now I have a point at 1, 0, 3, 1, and 9, 2. Then you draw in your inverse, and you want to label it as well. And again, that was 1, 0, 3, 1, and 9, 2. So for our domain of the inverse, we don't have any negative x values, so our domain would be 0 to infinity. For our range, we go down forever and we go up forever, so negative infinity to positive infinity. For the asymptotes, we just have the one vertical asymptote at x equals 0. And then for end behavior, as x approaches infinity, f inverse of x approaches infinity. as x approaches 0 from the right, so that little plus sign that I wrote means from the right, f inverse x approaches negative infinity. That should be it.